O'Leary and the Honorable Kelly Leach.
Conservatives kicked off their leadership debate with the energy of a wrestling match last night in Halifax. All 14 candidates were there to duke it out, including famous frontrunner Kevin O'Leary. This was O'Leary's first appearance on the stage with his opponents, and he was the focus of many of their attacks. Some took aim at a video O'Leary posted on social media this week on the same day of the funeral for 3 men shot to death in a Quebec City mosque. Turns out it's even an old video. We'll get to the controversy over that in a moment and the reaction to it last night. The other focus on the stage, Trudeau, of course. But first, I want to get right to our panel and the debate. It's time for the Sunday Scrum. Joining me today from Ottawa, Katie O'Malley of the Ottawa Citizen, freelance columnist Susan Riley, and John Ibbotson of the Globe and Mail. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Carol.
All right, let's start by asking a lot of people looking to see how the new guy on the block held up in this debate. Let me refresh your memory.
First, I'd like to welcome Kevin to the Conservative Party, and I'd like to welcome him back to Canada.
Earlier this week, you posted a horrific videotape of yourself firing a machine gun.
We were not on the Dragon Dance stage tonight.
Well, my fellow politicians here are sitting in Ottawa. I'm going to go from college to college to college and win back every single voter that Trudeau took away from us.
All right, let's get your impressions, panelists. Katie O'Malley first.
Yeah, actually, what struck me the most, and you couldn't really tell from that montage, but if you watch the entire debate, it was how little he seemed to dominate. I mean, with 14 people on stage, yeah, there were definitely moments when he would get to speak or the other candidates would, but he really wasn't able to kind of drown out the rest of the noise. Again, part of that was the formatting, but I think I was perhaps most struck by the fact that there were times where I would forget he was there for, 10 or 15 minutes while the conversation was going on with other people. So I'm not sure. Again, that's largely because of the format and the way this was sort of laid out. But in terms of did he really make a splash? Did he make an impression? We almost spent more time looking at the reaction the other candidates had, Kelly Leach, Michael Chong, than we did what he actually said and did. So in that sense, it wasn't a maestro performance.
Susan, what do you think?
I think the caveat has to be that this was just one debate in a long contest that doesn't end until May the 27th. That these people are pitching not to people like you and me or not to the general public even, but rather to some 100,000 Conservative Party members. So all to be said all to say that this will probably fade into memory very soon. Just looking at what happened last night, though, Lisa Raitt, who was on home ground because she was born and brought up in
Nova
Cape
Scotia,
Breton.
yep.
I thought she did very well. She connected really well with people in a very human way. I also thought Michael Chong, although he's considered an outside choice because he's too liberal, was way more forceful than he usually is, and took on O'Leary directly on this whole gun incident. I thought he also did well. And the rest of them, nobody really disgraced themselves with the exception. I would say that it's all over for Dr. Pepper, as they're calling Kelly Leach. She brought up, some of her policies. She sort of downplayed the Canadian values things, did bring it up at the end, and also mentioned this little noticed policy of hers to protect women from violence by making pepper spray legal.
We're going to talk about all of those things, Susan, in just a moment, but I want to get to John and get your impression of, a lot of people were paying attention to this debate to see what kind of impact Kevin O'Leary would make. What's your impression of that?
Well, he just seemed so constrained. I mean, physically constrained. There he is crowded onto the stage with contestants on either side of him, only getting to speak once every 15 minutes or so. And then when he did speak, it was nonsensical. He's going to win over the Lebanese vote. He's going to win over the Irish vote.
He's got the Irish, he said.
And he's going to go to every college in Canada and win back the student vote. Note to Kevin O'Leary, the Conservatives never had the student vote. There's no vote there for you to win back. But that's the kind of thing you would expect from an inexperienced campaigner or from a rookie politician. And that's what he came across as. Let's not forget, This is a ranked ballot in 338 equally weighted ridings. So the person who wins this is not the person who has the most first choices, whether it's Kelly Leitch or Kevin O'Leary or Maxime Bernier. The person who wins is the person who has the most second and third choices. So his job is to solidify his rock star image and win some votes that way. But then also to win over the doubters, the ones who might put him second or third choice, but who might also put him ninth or 10th choice. I don't think he did himself any favors yesterday in that regard.
Okay. But can I just say that he was not like Trump. He probably put to rest accusations or suggestions that he's like Donald Trump. In only one way was he like Donald Trump. He made absurd promises. I'm going to fix that. I'm going to save the next generation from Trudeau's horrible economic policy. He was a blowhard in that regard. But he didn't attack anybody, and he's demonstrably sane, which is a kind of a relief. They were asked a question about, a leading question, a tough on crime kind of question.
Yeah.
And,
well, I want to get to this point exactly, because one of the most ignored questions of the night was, do you feel laws and penalties around sexual assault are adequate? Two candidates had ideas and addressed their answer fully for how to deal with it, specifically Lisa Raitt and Kelly Leitch. And Chris Alexander, I'll give an honorary mention to, because at least he addressed the problem. But the others talked about everything from Sharia law to euthanasia to more judges and more police. And this is one of the most prevalent crimes in the country. Was it surprising to you how some of the candidates seemed a bit lost on this question? I'll put this to you, Katie.
Yeah, it was. I would have thought that given the story in the Globe and Mail, which I think maybe not triggered this, but this was looking at the number of unfounded cases of sexual assault, the cases that are deemed such by the police, which is definitely a problem. And as you said, both Lisa Raitt and I think Kelly Leitch had mentioned that when they gave their answers. But yeah, I would have expected the other candidates to perhaps have something more specific to say about that, rather than, as you say, just kind of going on the usual tough on crime, liberals are loving our thug huggers, we, support the victims first, more cops, tighter laws, all of that stuff. It's very generic. I mean, you could go back in time, years to past election campaigns and you hear the same things coming forward. There wasn't anything new. It was like a lot of the candidates did go on autopilot. So I was kind of surprised at that. But again, we do have to look at the context of this debate. This was at the Nova Scotia Provincial Conservative Association. That's what they want to hear. This is not, this is not the group that wants to hear a sort of nuanced view on crime and punishment and rehabilitation, although, credit to, I think it was Michael Chong who brought up rehabilitation as something that has to be looked at as well. But that was one of those issues where you could tell they were kind of playing to the crowd. But yeah, I was a bit surprised that they weren't at least prepared with a couple of statistics or ideas specifically on sexual assault.
Yeah, what was your impression, John?
Yeah, I think the Globe and Mail story series that Robin Doolittle did threw a bit of a wrench into it, because what Conservatives want to say is we're tough on crime, we support the police. And here you had this year-and-a-half-long investigation that said, well, in one area, the police aren't doing a very good job. They're not doing a very good job in listening to and acting on women who come to them claiming that they've been sexually assaulted. It depends on the police force, but many as high as 60% are simply dismissed as unfounded cases. And so that kind of goes against the Conservative narrative. And some candidates, like Lisa Raitt, for example, said, we have to look at that investigation. We have to start asking police to question their own methods in how they examine sexual assault cases. And now this just sort of went back over to boilerplate, but it contradicted the Conservative message.
Yeah, okay.
Well,
why do you think
Kevin
that is?
O'Leary
Susan,
put
why do you
forward-
think? Oh.
Well, I was just going to say, to continue on the Kevin O'Leary thing, when he was asked this question, he said, basically, we're very lucky to live in Canada. I travel all over the world, and really, you've got it good here, folks. That was his message. And to me, more important than what he said on the crime issue, which definitely wasn't what the audience wanted to hear, was the fact that it showed that I doubt very much that he saw or read the Globe piece. It was obviously in the mind of many other people on the stage.
Well,
and
I don't know about that. I don't know that a lot of other people read that Globe piece, judging by their answers. Yeah,
thought a couple of them mentioned it, but anyway,
Lisa Raitt did, and Chris Alexander did.
But more to the point, I think the most serious critique, the most damaging critique of Kevin O'Leary is that he's not in Canada. He spent the last week mostly in the United States. Obviously, the timing of that video of him shooting that coincided with the memorial service for the Quebec City victims. He apologized. He took the posting down. But to me, there's a sense that he's treating this leadership race is his Canadian franchise, so it's kind of secondary. He checks in every now and again, but his real focus is the U.S. and his businesses there and his television career there.
They're all fighting over who's just visiting, who's getting the just visiting campaign up and running. What were you going to say, John?
Yeah, but I can just stick an oar in briefly. You know, if you forget about Kevin O'Leary, and I truly think we should, the other candidates actually performed well. Chris Alexander did actually a very good job. So did Aaron O'Toole.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to get to.
So did Lisa Raitt.
Yeah.
These, you know, there were half a dozen people up on that stage at least who were forceful, who were articulate, who were knowledgeable, who could, in fact, lead the Conservative Party and present a challenge to Justin Trudeau in the next election.
So those are your three, John. Katie, who do you think could present a challenge, as John put it, to based on what you saw last night, to Justin Trudeau?
Well, I was definitely impressed with Lisa Raitt, as much because she is always someone, and I think other people have felt this watching her in previous debates, she didn't really seem to have brought her zeal and her energy and what we sort of recall seeing from her on the campaign trail and in the House of Commons during her ministerial days, but also as a critic. This was the first time that we sort of saw her being Lisa Raitt again. She had that energy, she had that sort of commonsensical style, and it was very effective. I imagine part of that was because she was speaking to a home crowd. She's a Cape Bretoner. She was able to be comfortable in that atmosphere. But yeah, this is the first time where I really looked at her and I thought more, Lisa Raitt is living up to what I would have expected her to be doing all along. If she can carry that on, then she's definitely got a pretty good shot. Aaron O'Toole was incredibly competent, as he always is. I think his danger is he does tend to kind of fade a little bit into the background, only because he doesn't take those sort of dramatic stances, and he's not very likely to. I mean, Michael Chung has clearly made the decision that, all right, I'm the only guy here who actually supports some carbon pricing. I'm going to embrace that. I'm going to be that guy. I'm going to, you know, sort of highlight my differences. He's able to kind of get some focus because of that. Aaron O'Toole's in a weird place because he's sort of right in the middle, and sometimes it can be difficult to shine. But he did, you know, he tried his best as well.